We know this ain't right.
Man, this can't be life.
We gotta unite.
Bill 1014.
Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy BDL. I intentionally didn't have a video planned for today, but it's imperative that I put out this brief synopsis of information because when you understand the socio-political aspect of civics, it works in symbiotic connection with the Great Awakening and spirituality. So I got to pull out this public service announcement. So with that being said, there's a lot of things that took place on September 23rd, which is basically the precursor to the government shutdown. Right? And the reason I say that is because, like I said, this is all being facilitated by FEMA, because when Trump signed the International Emergency Bill, the declaration, that basically suspended the Constitution. And the Constitution is the foundation of this corporate system that we're living in that's connected to the Federal Reserve. So the U.S. federal government is headed into a shutdown, right? And the reason it's going into a shutdown is because you have the maritime law is being suspended on September 23rd. The debt clock had transmuted over to the Treasury on September 23rd. And then you had the London Rally for Freedom on September 23rd. And then you have the Federal Reserve meeting on September 23rd. And then you got the IMF, which is the International Monetary Funding System, that met up on September 23rd, which is connected to the World Economic Forum. And they had a meeting in New York City on September 23rd. And all these events is basically headed into the precursor of a government shutdown. Because I told you there's a transmutation of power. So this is also the inception point of the end of the corporation, right? On a physical level and on a perceptual level, right? So you got four organizations that was founded in 1913, which is the Federal Reserve, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, and you got the ADL, which is the Anti-Defamation League that works in symbiotic connection with the Jewish Defense League, right? All these are basically the foundation of the Canaanite system, who got the power from the Draconian Reptilian, meaning that we're under Draconian law, and Draconian law is governmental ordinance departments. So that is your personification of God when you're talking about this whole corporation system, right? Which is a fictitious de facto corporation. And the reason it's a fictitious corporation is because you have the Federal Reserve note is basically no longer on the United States debt clock, which works in symbiotic connection to the cosmic clock, which also works in symbiotic connection to the desolation of abomination. And that desolation of abomination, meaning that it's connected to the end time clock that they got in New York City, because the end of their system is basically the end of the monetary system. So this is why when you look at the debt clock, it shows you that the U.S. Treasury note is in place of the Federal Reserve, because the money is not backed by a natural resource, which was also the inception point of Social Security, meaning that we're humanoid real estate to the corporation. So that is basically the fictitious entity that is connected to the demonstrative government of the shadow government that's being propagated by democracy and liberalism, right? So I know y'all remember the time when I told you that the Federal Reserve has been absorbed by the Treasury. And this is happening because the inception point on March 2020, right before the lockdown started, this is where they kind of, was trying to speed up the process to have this New World Order system, because they know that their time was running out. According to the Freemasonic Apocrypha Bible that was propagated in 1813, right? Apocrypha, look at the prefix of the word, Apocrypha, apocalypse. So the end of the world means that it's the end of their monetary system. It's the end of their corporation, right? It is not the end of the world. It's going from a transmutation power that was being subjugated by a patriarchal energy that was under theocracy and imperialism. So now nature has to take back everything that basically subjugated nature. Nature has to take back the planet, as I've been saying before. So you have the Federal Reserve, the federal governments in the fiscal year from October 1st, 2022 and the September 30th, 2023. If a new annual budget is not passed by Congress, you're going to have a government shutdown. So you're not going to have a new annual budget. It's not going to be passed. And the reason I say that is because when you understand the essence and the principles of this whole system in itself, the United States corporation is $33 trillion in debt to the international banking system. So that's why we have Social Security cards, because we're the humanoid real estate, because the money is not backed by an intrinsic resource. So when the money's not backed by something, that means the people are collateral, the people who don't have a nationality, the people who don't have any type of sovereignty, right? We're going to get into that. So this is why it's imperative to understand that you must claim a nationality. This is why the Prophet Noble Ali, he's always talking about the family of nations. The family of nations connects you to sovereignty. It connects you to where you have a nationality. Nationality comes from the word nativity. Nativity comes from the word birthright, meaning that you have a birthright to the land under a republic, which is connected to nature, to where you don't have to look for civil rights and equal rights. You be operating from a place of universal declaration of human rights, right? Human rights, which ties you right back to the geographical landmass of America, which belongs to you, right? Because I need you to understand something. When you understand the semantics that's being played behind these corporations and the technology through the verbiage, the great majority of so-called Black people are still connecting themselves to the system. So this is why Joe Biden, I gotta pull this up. This is why Joe Biden, we all know, you know what I'm saying? Like, when it comes to the socio-political aspect of civics, so-called Black people, we have to get out of this mindset of emotionalism. We all know that the great majority of people on the planet, the European, they are the ones who are pretty much facilitating government benefits. We already know that. So he's not talking about Blacks will suffer the most on that aspect of government assistance. You got other demographics of people that's connected to government assistance and use those benefits as well in the incentives from the government. What he's basically saying is that the foundation of the corporation in itself is being built on the backs of Black people, right? Because like I said, you go to the Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, you go to civil mortuus, meaning that you're civilly dead in the eyes of law because you don't have a nationality, because you're Black. So that means that you're a corpse to the corporation. So when you have a government shutdown, due to the money system starting to phase out, you're going to fall when the system falls, because your misnomer nomenclature title is connected to their system because you don't have a nationality. I'm going to play the video.
Worried about Congress were willing to shut down the government. Just a few months ago, the Speaker had somebody agreed to spending levels from the government. We were up right to the very edge, almost reneged on our debt, and that was one of the central priorities, and still cut the deficit by $1 trillion in the next decade. Now, a small group of extreme House Republicans got to that deal. You know, in America could be faced with paying the price for that. We changed it, we made a deal, shook hands, said this is what we're going to do, and now that we're making on the deal, it's not a surprise. And the Black community in particular can suffer if that occurs. For example,
he said the Black community is going to suffer, and the reason that is because, like I said, when you don't have a nationality and you're calling yourself Black, right, which is a fictitious misnomer nomenclature title that's connected to their corporate system. You're the reason, Black people are the reason why capitalism and racism and all these things, classism, we are the reasons why this whole fictitious system exists, right? Because it was built, the capitalism in itself was built on the blood, sweat, and tears of colonization by stealing land masses and things of that nature, by turning this over into humanoid real estate, because we're being facilitated by their monotheistic belief systems that took us away from our birthright. So Black people, when the system falls and you don't have a nationality, you fall when the system falls. You fall along with it. So that's why he was saying. So what he's basically saying is an act of war. Because like I said, in order to suspend the debt, that means that you have to kill off an amalgamation of groups of people. You know what I'm saying? You have to kill off an influx of so-called people who are connected to the corporate system in order to suspend the collateral. And the first people is going to be so-called Blacks, because we all know that, you know, systematic racism is well and alive, but it's more covert. It's more based on technology, and it's more based on semantics. That's because a lot of Black people, they don't understand the verbiage and the etymology of certain words that's connected to the political system. Because if you don't understand a language, this is where they pull the rug from underneath you every time. They're able to deceive you. They're able to trick you. This is why they call you a minority, meaning that you're minor. You have your mental capacity is that of a minor, meaning that you need a third-party entity to basically facilitate your needs and benefits to where you can reap the benefits of so-called justice.
Universal nutrition assistance nearly 7 million needs and children, which is going to disproportionately affect Black youth. The Department of Housing and Urban Development will have to stop doing all its enforcement work fighting housing discrimination. EPA would have to stop its important work bringing environmental justice and food-related Pennsylvania community.
So what's happening is, you know, this is why the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, when you go to, hold on for a second. This is why the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, when he created the divine constitution, when the Prophet Noble Drew Ali created the divine constitution of Moorish America, when you go to Acts 6, right, it tells you verbatim that with us all citizens must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, and that they may know that they are not part and parcel of the said government, and that they are not Negroes, colored folks, Black people, or Ethiopians, or African Americans, right? Because like I said, it ties you back to the corporation, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. So this is why you must proclaim your nationality. Because I said nationality is connected to the word nativity. Nativity comes from the word birthright. So you reap the benefits of your birthright when you have a nationality, meaning that you're a naturalized citizen in the geographical landmass of America. I told you, you got to get your nationality. I said in one of my videos that when you go to the 1848 Supreme Court decision on June 8th, it says verbatim that the geographical landmass of America for 1 million square miles belongs to the Moors, or the Mers, the indigenous Mers, which is the Algonquins, the Seminole, the Choctaw, Wichita, the Yamasee. These are some of the 5 civilized tribes that's connected to the geographical landmass of America, right? So America is the real Morocco. So the Morocco that you just had, they just had an earthquake. That was basically the foundation of judgment. because they're basically being galvanized by the United Nations. You see what I'm saying? America is the real Morocco, which is also Exum, North and South adjoining islands, right? That was connected to Atlantis at one point in time. That's a whole different transmission that we're going to get into another time. So that's, like I said, you can't call yourself black, because like I said, when you call yourself black, it ties you right back to their corporation, right? So when it ties you right back to their corporation, that puts you under the 14th Amendment, because the 14th Amendment is a fraudulent contract. That's why you got to read the federal laws and civil procedures, because the 14th Amendment was never ratified, right? So when you're under a fictitious corporate war entity, you can't claim injury to the system because you participated in fraud. So this is where FEMA can get you. This is why, you know what I'm saying, during the time when you had Black Wall Street, that was able to take place because those people didn't have a nationality. You know what I'm saying? They basically dematerialized and destroyed 1,500 businesses during Black Wall Street. Why? Because they didn't have a nationality. Because when you have a nationality, these outside corporations, enterprises, and entities, they won't be able to subjugate you to their system because they be operating outside of constitutional fold of government. So when you operating outside of constitutional fold of government, you cannot place policies, ordinances, regulations. You know what I'm saying? You can't put this upon people who have a nationality because they're sovereign to the land, right? So that's why the Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, we have to connect back to the family of nations. The family of nations is galvanized by a republic. So when you connect it to a republic, you connect yourself right back to the land, right? So when Black people call themselves Black people or African American, so to speak, or Negroes or color folks, you under color of law, meaning that it connects you to the 1724 Black Christian codes, because the 1724 Black Christian codes is where the police get their policies from, because you under colorable law. So when you under color of law, that puts you in a state of subjugation that connects you right back to the straw man, right? So that's why you got to read the Black's Law Dictionary, the 6th edition, right? Because what you got to understand is that these fictitious titles is basically under a corporate internal code, meaning that it's based on commerce and a commercial law. And a commercial law is facilitated by a corporation. And when a corporation runs out of money, that means they got to use the people that they built the system on top of. They got to use them as collateral in order to suspend the debt. So meaning that they have to kill off a great majority of so-called Blacks. This is why you had 1,000 girls come up missing in Ohio. You see what I'm saying? And the great majority of them were melanated. So in order to suspend that debt, you got to sacrifice a demographic of people. You see what I'm saying? Because they're going to sacrifice us before they sacrifice themselves, or people who look like them that's helping carry out the agenda, right? So like I said, your artificial self is the straw man, right? And your straw man is connected to the Federal Reserve System that's connected to Wall Street. Because when you understand the inception point of this fictitious system, the first stocks and bonds, stockades and bondage were your so-called slaves, right? Because when you break down the etymology of the word Seminole, it means fugitive slave or runaway. Who was a runaway, right? It was your so-called Blacks who got taken out of their sovereign capacity because they connected themselves to a fictitious monotheistic belief system. Because when you break down the etymology of the word Christian through the G3526 Strong Concordance, Christian translates to the word black that ties you right back to the Inquisition of the 1724 Black Christian codes, right? So with that being said, you under a legal fiction. You're not this is why they, through the Dred Scott case, they was calling you 3/5 a man, right? Because like I said, you under a international banking system. So this is why I said their entire thing is based on paying bankruptcy. The straw man is the debtor and the government is the agent for the creditor. The international bankers own Federal Reserve. Whenever a government agency such as court, when you're in a court of law, that is a bank. That is not, traffic court and things of that nature. That is a bank. It determines liability. It is a liability of the legal straw man since everything is done in commerce, a corporate internal code. You are a straw man because you don't have a nationality. You under a fictitious system. This is why when you look at your social security card, everything's in all caps. Everything that's connected to the government system is in all caps, your ID card. That is the fictitious you that's connected to the Vatican, right? So, with that being said, as I was saying, the all capital letters is the artificial person that's created by law at one's birth via inscription of all capital letters. Birth certificate documents, marriage certificates, death certificates. These are the fictitious you that's being traded on Wall Street. So like I said, when you don't have a nationality, right, you don't have any sovereignty. So when you are operating from a place of a misnomer title, such as a black person or a corporate ward entity under the 14th Amendment, that means that the corporation in itself has trade derivatives in a promissory note that's connected to your name, meaning that it's a debt obligation that has trade derivatives on Wall Street. You're being traded, right? Because you're not operating from a place of universal law. Universal law works in symbiotic connection with the universal Declaration of Human Rights. You don't have any human rights because you operate from a fictitious entity. The fictitious entity is the shadow government. The shadow government is democracy. Democracy is basically in symbiotic connection to the people who have 6,000 years dominion over the planet. That's why I said that in the 1813 Freemasonic Apocryphal Bible, the year 2023 is 5,999. The year 6,000 is the year 2024. So that's why everything that took place on September 23rd is actually the precursor to everything that's going to be happening next year, right? Because it's the end of the corporation. You know what I'm saying? They're not able to reap the benefits of this corporation because they have to suspend the debt by killing off people that's connected to FEMA, right? Because there is a delineation between a United States citizen and an American. You can't be one and the same. I thought I had this video up, but I can't find it. But I gotta send it to my computer. So, or is it this one? Yeah, here it goes. This is the video. Because you got to understand something. There's a delineation between an American has sovereignty. An American has naturalization. An American has a nationality. A United States citizen doesn't have any rights. They have privileges. So when you call yourself black, you have a privilege. When you call yourself African American, you have a privilege. Because it takes you away from the geographical landmass of America. I told you the title holders are the MERS that's connected to the 5 civilized tribes, the so-called Native Americans. But the people who are propagating as Native Americans, those are $5 Indians, right? That's why they're being evicted off their reservations, right? Because they operate from a place of fraud. It's the end of the corporate system, right? So, like I said, there's a difference between a United States citizen and an American. An American has a nationality. A United States citizen doesn't have any rights. You know what I'm saying? They have privileges. So this is why when you have, I'm gonna just play the video.
New York State is still fighting. New York State is still fighting for the right to set up quarantine camps. Today, the battle entered the next phase when the court heard.
I need you to read the semantics. When you're talking about a quarantine camp, you're talking about a FEMA camp. Like I said, they play semantics with the verbology because they understand that people are not, you know, they don't have the ability to comprehend what's taking place when it comes to politics and things of that nature. But that's what they're talking about. A quarantine camp is a FEMA camp.
Today, the battle entered the next phase when the court heard oral arguments in the case. NTD's Arian Pastar spoke with the lead attorney and a state senator involved in the case.
Quarantine camps in the state of New York. Governor Kathy Hochul and Attorney General Letitia James want to implement Rule 2.13. It would give the state's Department of Health the power to forcibly isolate individuals suspected of carrying a transmittable disease.
This is truly about being able to control citizens for any reason.
Listen what he said. This is about, see, they play semantics behind the scenes if you don't understand the language. This is a form of fifth dimensional chess. If you don't understand the language, you're going to get lost in the sauce every time. He said this is being used to control citizens. He didn't say Americans. You can't be an American and a United States citizen at the same time. A United States citizen is connected to the corporation. You go to Uniform Commercial Code, Title 18, Section 3002, page 86, third paragraph. It tells you that the United States is a corporation. The United States of America denotes ownership because of denotes ownership. Ownership of citizens, right? The United States for America is for the Americans. That's why when you look at the promissory note, when you look at a dollar bill or whatever, it tells you, it says the United States of America. It used to say the United States for America, which is connected to a republic that was implemented in 1776. Then in 1871, they reversed the polarity and said United States of America, right? Because like I said, of denotes ownership of a people that's connected to the Federal Reserve System, that's connected to the Social Security system, that's connected to people who don't have a nationality because they calling themselves Black. I'm gonna play this video.
Truly about being able to control citizens for any reason.
New York State Senator George Borrello and lead attorney Bob.
So it's used to control citizens because this is all connected to FEMA. Because I told you, FEMA has more power than the president. FEMA has more power than Congress. Because like I said, when Trump signed the International Emergency Declaration, that suspended the Constitution. So that was a transmutation of power that put FEMA in power. So when FEMA's in power, they can basically do anything to these so-called American citizens because you're not able to reap the benefits of restitution, reparations. They can basically kill you off in these so-called FEMA camps in order to suspend the debt, right? Because I told you, this is a transmutation of power, right? So, and the reason that is all this stuff is happening is because it's all connected to the Federal Reserve. It's all being facilitated by bankrupt governments such as a straw man for the purpose of siphoning wealth in otherwise sovereign men and women and conveying the proceeds to the creditor. The Federal Reserve, IMF, which is the International Monetary Funding System, after redemption, you can use your straw man for your benefit rather than continuing to be enslaved and be abused because of it. But like I said, you got to know who you are. You got to know your real history. So it's not one of those things where I'll be like, oh, I want to claim my nationality so I can get, incentives and get the things that I believe. Like I said, you got to connect all this stuff with your spirituality. The inception of your spirituality, your true spirituality, right? Your true history plays a part in this whole process of the Great Awakening. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't know who you are, that's going to create a dimensional split, right? You're going to have the ones who are your so-called chosen ones, 144,000, getting away from those who are trying to connect themselves back to the corporate system because they still think they Black people. They still think they African Americans. They still think that, these celebrities care about us to where they can advocate our rights to vote and things of that nature. Because when you vote, you connect yourself right back to the corporation. I'm going to break that down in a second. So under the Uniform Commercial Code, our straw man is defined as transmuting utility, meaning that you're basically being utilized as a humanoid real estate, right? You the money now. Because I told you the money hasn't been backed by natural resources since 1934. So that's why they implemented the Social Security Act, right? So when you're talking about the pole shift, when you're talking about the shift in itself, everything, the inception of it has a hierarchy of laws. A matriarch is under a universal law, which is a natural law, which is God's law. So when you operate from God's law, this is where you have sovereignty. So when you have sovereignty, you have contract law, to where you reap the benefits of having treaties. And those treaties have a divine constitution that was implemented by Noble Drew Ali, right? So when you're talking about the corporation itself, the corporation connects itself to policies. And those policies are corporations and agents that control the citizen. So that's the delineation between universal law and ordinances and policies and regulations that's being facilitated by mankind, because mankind is a kind of a man. So you have a fictitious man creating a fictitious corporation that takes the chosen ones who belong to the land out of their sovereign capacity, right? So when you go to the Uniform Commercial Code, Title I financial statement, it tells you right here that the registered deeds of the Secretary of State having a birth certificate, using the Social Security number, registering as a voter, having to file a tax return, driver's license, a vehicle registration, a government marriage certificate, having children in a government school, having to register as a voter, having received professional license, attorney, doctor, architect, engineer, being a director of a corporation. All these things ties you right back to the corporation. But like I said, it's up to us to have the mental and spiritual fortitude to get out of that Metatronic overlay, which is galvanized by the physical plane, right? You have to get out of that mindset. You have to think outside the box. And the only way to think outside the box is having your nationality, right? And the best way I tell people always inbox me talking about how do I reap the benefits of getting my nationality. First of all, you got to know your true inception point of history and how it connects to your spirituality. So when you understand history, you will know that the fallacy of this corporation is based on colonization. So once you understand that, spiritually, you will deviate from these fictitious corporate systems. You would basically deviate from these thought forms that are implemented by the Matrix. So all of these things right here that I just listed, are basically connects you to the Matrix system, the illusionary system that's being galvanized by patriarchy, which is connected to democracy. I told you, Krasi, the word, the suffix of the word democracy is Krasi, Kratos, chronology, right? The god of Saturn. The god of Saturn is actually the Matrix, Metatronic overlay. You are spiritually boxed in because you're connected to having a birth certificate, not calling yourself Black people, calling yourself an African American. You see what I'm saying? Now, you go to the Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. In order to be free, because freedom in itself is operate from a place of self-determination. So when you have self-determination, that means that you'll be operating from a place of mastery, right? So when you operating from a place of mastery, that deviates you from the system in itself. So that, hold on, I can't see it. That basically adjudicates you from the Uniform Commercial Codes, right? So your commercial name, your trade name, your jurisdiction name is your straw man, which is a so-called fictitious legal person that is subjective to the legislative statutes, right? So like I said, in order to be free, you got to be operating from internal self-law and management, right? Which is your personification of the acronym Islam, internal self-law and management, mastery, right? So this is why, like they use this as a form of humanoid real estate. So this whole system in itself came into existence when you have your birth certificate, which is a bond. A bond has trade derivatives on Wall Street because it's a promissory note and it has debt obligations. So the trust in itself is basically who you are as a natural person. So that internal revenue code is connected to the fact that when the Federal Reserve System was implemented, they needed a natural resource in order to connect themselves back to the economic system. So this is why they created humanoid real estate, Social Security cards, because there wasn't any gold to back, you know what I'm saying, these corporations that they were trying to implement. So what happens is the internal revenue code system, they made blacks or United States citizens the currency. But the true currency is gold. That's God's money, right? So this is why it tells you, when you understand how you weigh gold or whatever, gold is weighted by ounces. So the abbreviation of the nomenclature title of gold is actually OZ. OZ is connected to the land of Oz. Follow the yellow brick road. So when you follow the money, when you follow the gold, who's keeping the gold, that's who you can tell the delineation between who's who and what's what. That's how you can tell who's subjugating everybody on a monetary level, which is your Canaanite system that's created by the beast, right? So, like I said, when Joe Biden said that blacks will be affected the most by, the government shutdown, because when you understand the Christian black codes of 1724, all these articles is connected to the corporate system. If the system shuts down and you're connected to their system by calling yourself black and African American, you're connected to the 1724 Black Christian codes, where the police get their policies from. Because police officers are actually policy enforcers. And the policy enforcers, they basically work for the Vatican. So that's why when you read Article 3 of the 1724 Black Christian codes, the permits of the exercise of a Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. So you can't connect to your Kemetic spirituality if you're a black person. Because I told you, the word Christian translates to the word black in the Strong Concordance, right? That's why I told you the church and the state is not separate. They work in symbiotic connection through canon laws. So this is why they created the system in itself. So like I said, the code prohibited slaves from publicly practicing any religion other than Catholic, Apostolic, and the Roman Catholic religion. Because I told you, Catholicism in itself is connected to Freemasonry. So all these religious systems is being operated by Shaitan, right? Who is the physical devil, who is mankind, who is the Canaanite. So when you don't know who you are by calling yourself a black person, you are following the ways, you are following the spiritual systems of the people who are basically connected to the cursed bloodline. So this is why I'm going to do a video talking about the cursed bloodline and the judgment of the Canaanite. So when you tie yourself back to their spiritual systems, because I told you their spiritual systems is a form of subjugation of the flesh, right? It's a form of subjugation of the flesh. So this is an old 1724 Black Christian code, old publication. And it tells you right here on Act 1, be enacted by the governor, council, enacted by an authority of the same. All servants brought into this country without indenture is said to be servants and Christians. So like I said, the inception of your true spirituality, you wasn't no damn Christian. You know what I'm saying? Christianity wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for slavery, right? You wouldn't be a Christian if it wasn't for slavery. So this is why, you know what I'm saying, black people got to get out of the technology when you're talking about these fictitious spiritual systems, right? You know what I'm saying? The great majority of black people are more offended of, seeing the propagation of your so-called Jesus being on the cross. They're more offended by that instead of being offended by the people who create the system. They hung their ancestors on trees. They're not offended by that, but they're offended by a fictitious Jesus that hung up on the cross, right? That's because they're stuck under the sleep spell. The sleep spell is connected to the material world. It's connected to the corporation. It's connected to the monetary system, right? So all this stuff plays a part. All this stuff is connected, right? So this is why their system in itself is being galvanized by an ordinance. An ordinance is not a law. A policy is not a law. Regulation is not a law. You know what I'm saying? Restrictions is not a law. You know what I'm saying? These are fictitious titles, right? So in order to create a law through universal law, meaning that you have to be a naturalized citizen, you have to have sovereignty. So like I said, Black people, you have to get into the fact that you have to have a nationality. You need to get your nationality. And the reason I say that is because when you have a nationality, that ties you right back to the land. That ties you right back to the land, because when it ties you right back to the land, when stuff starts to go down, you know what I'm saying, they won't be able to usurp your land. So that's why, like I said in the beginning of the video, the great majority of those people, when you had those 1,500 businesses destroyed on Black Wall Street, all that stuff happened because they didn't have a nationality, right? They suffered from that, right? To where they didn't reap the benefits of restitution. They didn't get no reparations for that, because they still under the frequency of a misnomer nomenclature title of Black or African American, or calling themselves colored. So what happens is, when you have a United States federal government is headed into a shutdown, when you have a shutdown, right? That's why Joe Biden said Blacks would suffer the most. Notice I said Blacks. He did not say sovereign Americans. He said Blacks. Because when you call yourself Black, he's able to suspend the debt, because the government shutdown in itself is being facilitated by the fact that on September 23rd, the debt clock got resetted, which basically suspended maritime law. Maritime law is the foundation of their corporate system. So when you call yourself Black, in order to suspend the collateral that's connected to the fictitious monetary system, that means that you have to kill off a lot of Black people, just like how they did in at Black Wall Street, when they subjugated and destroyed 1,500 Black businesses and killed off all those Black people. Those people that have a nationality. So when FEMA is operated, this is where you activate martial law. When you activate martial law, those who are under the corporate system, you know what I'm saying, they're basically going to be sacrificed to the system, because I told you the United States corporation is $33 trillion in debt. But in order to suspend the collateral, you got to kill off a lot of people, because you're the humanoid real estate, because we got Social Security cards. The money's not backed by nothing, so you got to kill off the people. And the first people is going to be your so-called Black people who are connected to the system. That's why you got to understand who you are mentally, physically, spiritually, and vibrationally, right? So a lot of people were talking crazy, talking about, well, what's supposed to happen on September 23rd? All this stuff happened on September 23rd. Maritime law suspended on September 23rd. Debt clock got reset on September 23rd, where it got took over by the Treasury. Then on London Rally for Freedom on September 23rd. The Federal Reserve meeting on September 23rd. The IMF, the International Monetary Funding System, on September 23rd. Then you had the World Economic Forum that basically met on September 23rd. So this was basically the segue to the government shutdown in itself. So something actually did take place. That is your so-called storm. That storm that was coming, this is what it's talking about. Because it's going to be the precursor to what's going to happen when you're talking about the shutdown, and it's going to be the precursor to what's going to happen in 2024, which is the end of the 6,000 years, according to the Freemasonic Apocryphal Bible that I was talking about in the year 2030 video. So I just wanted to give a brief synopsis about this video, because it's imperative, because Joe Biden, when he put out that public service announcement on national television, that was an act of war. So he was talking about how Blacks are going to be affected the most. He is not talking about no damn government assistance or whatever. We all know that the great majority of people who are on government assistance are Europeans. We know that already. So you have to get out of the state of emotionalism. He is actually talking about things from a more covert level. Everything's operating from a place of being more covert, meaning that they're using technology and semantics to hide the agenda. So what he basically said was an act of war. So when you have a government shutdown, or let's just say the monetary system in itself started to deplete itself, like I said, in order to suspend the debt, you have to kill off an amalgamation of people, and the first people is going to be your so-called blacks. So like I said, man, this is basically an act of war. You know what I'm saying? This is where you're going to have an influx of, hate crimes and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? Don't be surprised if you start seeing a lot more propagation of police brutality and things of that nature that's going to be engineered by the media. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this gave you the clarity. I hope this video gave you the edification that you need to understand the delineation between a United States citizen and an American. You can't be both at the same time. An American is actually a Native American that's connected to the 5 civilized tribes, the indigenous Mers, who are the title holders of the geographical landmass of America. A United States citizen is a white person or a black person or African American because they don't have a nationality. So when you don't have a nationality, you don't reap the benefits of restitution and reparation. You don't get justice. That's why the scales of justice is off balance. Matter of fact, I got a picture of it. The scales of justice is off balance, right? Hold on. The scales of justice is off balance. Let me share my screen here. So when you're looking at this, the scales of justice is off balance. Now, this is just, a very simplistic level. When you have a nationality, you have natural rights. When you have natural rights, that ties you to the Declaration of Human Rights. So where you don't reap the benefits, the negative benefits of civil rights, because civil rights connects you to civics. Civics connects you to the fictitious corporation. So this is where you get inalienable rights because you have a positive status, right? Meaning that you're a proper person. You have full life. You're a natural person. That connects you to the Naturalization Act, meaning that you're a free white person. A free white person in law is not a so-called European. It's a person who has sovereignty, right? It's a person who has mastery, internal self-law and management, right? Now, when you look at the difference, when you're talking about civil rights, this is why Martin Luther King said he felt like he led his people into a burning building, because civil rights connects you to the corporation, which is a negative status, right? Meaning that you're under the civil mortuus principles, civilly dead in the eyes of law because you're a corpse to the corporation. This is where you need an attorney because you're a minor, right? You're a minor in law, which makes you a minority. So you need a third-party entity to represent you because you don't have the edification to represent yourself in law, right? So this is where the artificial corporate person takes place that's connected to the 14th Amendment. So like I said, this is where you place yourself under colorable law, right? Which is legal rights, right? So that's why I just had to show you that, because when you understand status, when you understand standing and state and conditions and socio-political aspects of positions in law, you understand that the legal relation of the individual in itself is connected to the community. So with that being said, it's imperative to understand who you are. It's imperative to understand who you are, because otherwise you're going to get caught up into the technology and the semantics of Shaitan. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to put out a quick video. I did not plan to put this video out there, but I needed to put this video out there for clarity purposes to where people can understand what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people don't understand the socio-political aspect of civics, because civics and, government and all this stuff plays a part in your spiritual ascension in a great awakening. So a lot of things took place on September 23rd. So don't let nobody tell you that, ain't nothing happened on September 23rd and the world didn't end or whatever. It's basically the end of the corporation. Like I told you, look at the 1813 Freemasonic Apocryphal Bible. It tells you that the end of the 6,000 years is in 2024. The end of the 6,000 years denotes the fact that it's the end of the corporation. September 23rd was the precursor to the segue of ending the corporation, because all those things that I listed basically suspended the Federal Reserve to where it transmuted over to the Treasury, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, end of transmission.